Ladies, gentlemen, myself, this is the American Sci-Fi Classics Quarantine Panel, and welcome to it. Today, we're going to take a deep dive, if you will. Thank you, into SeaQuest DSV. And joining me today are... Deanna, you have been on our quarantine panels before.
I have.
You've never been on a live action panel with us, but someday.
No, not at DragonCon. No, I've never made it to DragonCon yet.
In person, but someday we're going to make that happen. Now,
so I've been told.
Trust me, if you show up, Joe and Gary will put you on a panel.
I feel like I really feel like I will be forced to sleep in the panel room by Gary and Joe, and
then you won't have to worry about getting a hotel. You know?
It's just gonna be.
We're trying to make it easy for you.
Shows I never watched, I'd have to talk about.
I've done that.
I've been on panels when he has done that.
Yes, you have. So anyway, here we are. The other three of our quarantine panelists have been on live action panels with us, but I don't think any of you guys have been on the quarantine panels with us.
No, this is my first.
So welcome to everyone's computers in the world.
Now, Jessa and I did a live in-person SeaQuest panel.
It was awesome.
I don't remember the year. I don't remember.
I think it was like 2 years ago.
It's been a while, yeah. So that was fun.
But yes, you and Jessa did a live action SeaQuest panel for us in our track room. But now let's talk about it some more. Starting on my left, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Jessa Phillips.
Oh, I'm on your left. Hi.
And 2 internets away from Jessa, introduce yourself, ma'am, Miss Allison Richards.
Hi, I'm Allison Sky Richards. I'm also known as Bethany's awesome roommate. And I know we had Danya, her mom, as a guest star one day.
That's true.
Now you have me, and I've got 11 years worth of stories in the recent time period that I can share.
Excellent.
But that's not what we're here about, mostly.
Yeah. And on 1, 2, 3 internets away from me is the award-winning Mr. Bobby Nash. How are you, sir?
I am wonderful. Happy to be here. I have been enjoying watching these quarantine panels, so it's really cool to be on one now.
Awesome. Eventually, everyone will be on there. I don't mean
you, viewer.
In general. I mean just ours. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome back, everybody. Our pal Deanna Toxopeus. How are you, ma'am?
Ooh.
I am fine. It is a good day.
So, SeaQuest DSV, was that a show? I don't.
It's just a little show.
So tell us about the SeaQuest DSV, Bobby.
I forget the year. I'm terrible with years, as you can tell by this conversation. But I remember it is a show. The concept of this show I found to be excellent. I'm a big sci-fi fan. When I first saw the commercials, there were 3 things that grabbed me about this show that made it a must-watch. It looked like it was a really cool sci-fi show. Roy Scheider was in it, who is in my favorite movie of all time, and Stacey Hayduke was in it, and I was just in love with her. And so those 3 things made it a must-watch. And then I watched it, and it's just a fun little action adventure sci-fi show that had its ups and downs, as you know, and so yes, but it almost seems like if you looking at it now with the years between it, I just recently rewatched them on Peacock. So they're streaming now. So I recently rewatched them because I hadn't seen them in years, and it almost seems like it's 3 different. Each season is almost a different show.
It is.
Because it's each season has different people behind the scenes, and it looks like it's almost like each one is its own first season. and some better than others. but yeah, fun show. I loved it. I loved the characters. It was one of those things it was enjoyable to watch.
Deanna, go.
So SeaQuest ran from 93 to 96, and Bobby is very, very correct in that it is 3 different shows. I am a bit of a SeaQuest fan, in case you can't see behind me. SeaQuest is hugely important to me in my life. My husband and I kind of bonded over SeaQuest. That's how we met. I was wearing a SeaQuest shirt. I think it was wearing actually the gray crew shirt. I have a gray crew shirt floating around somewhere. The gray crew t-shirt. So the gray one with the little logo, and I got that when I was at an auction and a con in Orlando, and I was wearing that the first time I met him, and he asked me what happened in the episode where Lucas got kidnapped because his VCR had run out. And kids, a VCR is a tape that we used to put in a machine, and we used it to record television. Okay? When things weren't streaming. So my response to him was, can you narrow it down to a season? Because that boy was a walking disaster. Because if you'd watched the show, he got kidnapped every one of the 3 seasons. And so ever since then, that kind of started my relationship with my husband at that point. At that point, he wasn't my husband, but that we married. So SeaQuest is hugely important to me. And in fact, my husband reminded me this morning, Joe, that my winning entry in the first Zealot Top 10 poll, which was what is Babylon 5's sequel, was Babylon DSV Kosh to be played by a cute dolphin. And that won me the first Zealot contest that you guys ran, you and Shane ran.
Yeah, I believe I was running that, and I thought, that's somebody who gets the obscure references, ladies and gentlemen. So. Yeah.
So it was 3 very different shows. And I'll be honest, when it first came on, I didn't watch it because I thought it's Star Trek underwater. But second season started up, and I happened to be in front of a television, and I happened to see Peter Deluise, who I had been a fan of from 21 Jump Street. And I was intrigued by this Dagwood character that he was playing. And luckily, I live in Canada. And the French channel was playing season 1 in French, and I speak French. So I was able to catch up on the first season very, very quickly. And I got pulled in. And I've met people through the internet, because the internet had just started at that point. Really, if you think about it, our popular internet comes on board at that point. And I'm able to make friends with people who I'm still friends with. And I ended up at a convention. I ended up exchanging barbs with producers on the show when the famous 3rd season came. So SeaQuest is a pretty important thing for my life if we want to talk about me as a geek, me as a fan.
So let's go. Lola, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I was trying to do my new background. I don't know what's going on. My computer's possessed today.
You're trapped underwater, I'm guessing.
I'm going to blame Patrick Hapsburg, because that's what SeaQuest fans do. We blame Patrick Hapsburg for this problem.
So let's go to Allison. What was your first encounter with SeaQuest?
Oh gosh, I was a freshman in high school when SeaQuest came out, and I was the only sci-fi geek in my entire little friend circle. So I was the one girl who would be watching it at home and not able to really talk about it because I didn't want to be the geek girl that nobody understood. Yet I found my first best friend in high school through SeaQuest because she was an avid Jonathan Brandis fan. And so she was watching it for Jonathan, not for the sci-fi. And we pretty much stuck together for 3 years, watching SeaQuest and then writing fan fiction before I knew what fan fiction actually was. And that's pretty much my first go into it.
Let's go to Jessa, and then Lola, it's your turn to tell us about your first encounter with SeaQuest. Jessa?
I'm pretty much just right on board with Allison. For us, it was just family TV time in our house. And it was a really great era in TV. I'm sorry, but it just was. I was just thinking, at some point, I think it was back to back with, it was like SeaQuest and Earth 2.
Mm-hmm.
Second season.
Amazing.
Yep.
So, but that was just family watching in my household. My mother will argue it now. She wonders today where I get all this geekiness from, but I have to remind her it's her. She's the one who watched all these things. I mean, it was on primetime TV, and that's just what we did. You had dinner together. Oh my God! And then you watched TV. And what better thing to do? And yes, I had a crush on Jonathan as well, but also Ted. So there you go. And who doesn't love a dolphin? Come on.
Oh yeah. Everyone loves Darwin.
So, Lola.
Well, the funny thing is, I didn't watch it until the Sci-Fi Network ran a marathon in like 2001 or 2002, because I remember I was living with my mom, and I stayed back in my room, and I had my little 19-inch TV, and I just sat there glued to it and watched it all day long. And I love Roy Scheider, so that's all you had to say was Roy Scheider. And I'm like, I need a bigger TV. To get a bigger TV. But for then I had the 19-inch, and I just watched it all day long. And I was like, I love this show.
So we Bobby casually mentioned it briefly, but it is now streaming on Peacock.
Peacock, yes.
Yes. I don't know if it's. I know Peacock has a free level. I don't know if it's free level on that.
Yeah, that's what I have, because we have Xfinity, and it's free if you have Xfinity. They're free level.
Okay.
So that's where I recently rewatched them, was on that.
Okay. Well, good. So after this panel, go watch SeaQuest.
I will say too.
You don't have an Amazon stick or a Roku, and then you just need to go buy the DVDs.
Yeah.
See, perfect.
And it's actually it's available on Blu-ray as well. So
Yeah.
if you don't have access to any
How
of those.
cool is that?
Yeah.
How many
Yeah,
canceled shows are they? How often do they put those on Blu-ray?
On Blu-ray, so.
Now, if you
bitter, by the way.
If you do stream it, be advised, season 2 and season 3, they're listed as separate shows.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Yes, because they did have a name change. So season 3 is actually listed as a different show.
SeaQuest 2032.
2032, yeah.
Yeah.
And I hate time jump. Huh?
We're like 12 years away from SeaQuest 2032 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
more.
and actually,
Some of the storylines have already taken place.
yeah, actually,
Yeah,
because there was a time jump at
Yeah, 10 year.
season 2 and season 3.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the wiki on the side to remind me of things, and the first season took place in the year 2018.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Jonathan Ford is out there, people. And, you know.
And I would just like to say in my backyard, because
I know where my sticker is.
Jonathan
Okay?
Ford's in your backyard?
I know where mine is.
Why did you not tell me?
and I should have put the all call.
So, Deanna, you mentioned this briefly. What about beyond the show? What were your first encounters with SeaQuest fandom, like at cons or?
Oh gosh,
it
was. We're talking the Usenet. We're talking message boards. We're talking, starting to, after an episode would air, again, back in the old days, children. A TV show would air, and then you would go online and talk about it with everybody on the message boards, and you would try and get there as fast as you could so that you could be part of the conversation, because then otherwise you'd be, if you got to it the next morning, you'd be reading, everybody else's 100 messages. So yeah, it was the Usenet, and the changes, it's interesting. The change from 1 to 2 proved to be controversial amongst the fandom, because season 1 is really a science-based show. They were really trying to tie it into science, and so a lot of the episodes were based on issues around marine biology or conservation or archaeology. But the ratings weren't great, so they wanted more ratings. They expected this to do well because Steven Spielberg and Roy Scheider. So Steven Spielberg was one of the producers. He didn't come up with this. Rockne S. O'Banion came up with this, and he's actually listed as the creator. And so, but Spielberg came on fairly early as a producer, and I think it was his name that got the show greenlit. So, but NBC was expecting better returns. So there was an episode in season 1 called Such Great Patience, which is the alien episode where they find the aliens who had been at the bottom of the ocean for thousands, millions of years, whatever, some indeterminate amount of time.
They were very patient aliens.
Yeah, very patient. And the ratings on that did quite well. Like, they actually were some of the best ratings of the season. Now, guys, remind me, or those of you that are looking at the wiki, was Mark Hamill in that episode too? Such Great Patience? No, it's the next season that he pops in. Yeah. So,
but now season 1 did stack the show with a lot of well-known guest stars.
Oh gosh, like
Yeah,
Shatner was in it. Yeah, Shatner. God damn it. And there were like I was looking at some of the names today. Heston was in it. Like there's people like they spent a lot of money on this show, because Shatner's not cheap, and neither is there's a bunch of what's his face from Fiddler on the Roof was in it. Like there's like a lot of people.
It's Paul. It's Paul.
But Such Great Patience had such good ratings that Shatter is not cheap. Anybody who's been to a con knows what I'm talking about. But because of that, they thought this is what people want to see. They want to see aliens underwater, and they want to see fantastical. So they brought in Patrick Hapsburg, who, as I mentioned, was a producer. He was actually a producer of 21 Jump Street. And you can kind of see his involvement starting actually in season 1. Because all of a sudden, all sorts of 21 Jump Street people start showing up in SeaQuest. So Dustin Nguyen is in there. I can't think of his name, but he was the captain. There.
Stephen Williams.
Yeah, Stephen Williams was in there. Like all of a sudden, it's like what?
And then season 2, you see, both Deluise boys.
Both the Deluise boys show up. I mean, the only thing we're missing is Johnny Depp and Holly Robinson at this point.
Johnny Depp is also expensive.
Yeah, probably more expensive than Shatner. And we would have gotten better acting too. But anyways, so then you see that sort of shift to a more fantastical science fantasy.
Monster of the Week.
Monster of the Week, yeah. And in fact, there was a lot of criticism about that on the internet. And then that shift to season 3, where it wasn't supposed to come back, actually. This is stuff I found out through interactions with producers and on the internet. It wasn't supposed to come back. It was pretty much going to be canceled. But the pilot that the NBC had taken, I believe it was a show about a truck, some kind of super truck. And they didn't like it. It was really not good. So they greenlit a 3rd season of SeaQuest. And that's where we get SeaQuest 2032, which in the fandom is known as War Quest. Because it's basically they come back to a darker dystopian future. Roy Scheider is gone, replaced by Michael Ironside, who is Canadian. I have to say that legally. I am a Canadian citizen. Joe, tell Shane when he finally gets up here, he legally has to identify Canadians in conversation. It's like a requirement of citizenship.
You didn't mention that Shatner was Canadian.
That's true.
I don't admit Shatner Canadian. He is just no. You can keep Shatner. He's yours. God damn that man. So that's when you talk about my involvement, you talk about the involvement with the fandom. I got pulled into the Save SeaQuest campaign. I became a member of that, where we were trying to get the first season basically back. And one of the weird things it was probably one of the first Flame Wars I've ever seen. Those of you that remember the Usenet remember Flame Wars, and the producers, God bless their little hearts, Will Rabkin and who was the other guy? Can't think of his name.
Was it Lee Goldberg?
Lee Goldberg. There we go. They showed up after one of the 2032 episodes, one of the premieres, thinking you know, they had promised us over the summer they were going to have a better show, and we were all excited. And they showed up on the Usenet like, hey guys, what do you think? And like, it was bad. And I know that their experience with SeaQuest wasn't positive, because I believe it was Lee Goldberg went on to write Beyond the Beyond, which is a book about a murder mystery or something happening at a sci-fi convention. I've never read it, but I would suspect I'm, if not a character, I'm part of an amalgam. I'm part of, like, I've been put together with a couple other people to be a crazy fan. So yeah, no, that if you want to talk about involvement in the fandom, that's kind of where that goes. And the first con I went to actually was QuestyCon 3 in Orlando. I went to Orlando and paid a ridiculous amount of money just because I'd spent a year with these people online, and you know, like I said, I'm still friends with some of these people. I still talk to them all the time. I hope they're watching. So
well, they should be. Jessa, what and Allison, what's the best part of the show for you? What's is it the writing? Is it the actors? Is it both? What do you like best?
I was there for Bob Ballard. I was really disappointed when season 2 came out. And we went to SeaWorld. I was like, what happened here? No. Yeah, I think everything. I mean, for me, it was like, especially season 1. Season 1 is my favorite. I'm sorry. But I'm also a Navy brat, too. So it was interesting to see sort of the civilian take on what we think a civilian take would have been in sort of a peacekeeping function that almost never gets to be a peacekeeping function. So it was sort of like, for me, it was really immersive because I still had family in service. And so it's a good cross section there. We got the sci-fi, but then we got actors that we already loved and saw in everything else. Some stories were a little much, especially when we went off into some of the more fantastical stuff that we see, like season 2 and 3. But I think it was just overall, so much came together, and it just overall, through the whole course of it, there's more good than bad. Not a lot of shows can say that sometimes.
Allison, what about you?
Well, coming into SeaQuest, I had just come off of, 2.5 years of Captain Planet, as well as 21 Jump Street. So I totally came in for season 2 is where I was like all in on the show when the Deluise brothers showed up. Because I'm from New York, so I can claim the Deluise brothers.
And sorry to interrupt, Allison, but it's not well known that in the second season, the D in DSV stood for Deluises. Just so you know.
Yeah, because all 4 of them showed up at one point. You had 2 who were principals, and then Dom came in one time, and then the other brother came through one time.
Because I was trying to remember if David had been in. I was like going through my head.
He's in the same episode with Dom.
I was wondering if he was one of like the waiters in that weird club.
He was
because that's actually their mother too, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, let me pull up that episode.
Wow. Wow. Because that was where Dom was in the room. The smoking rooms were separate, sort of sealed off rooms, and he's in the smoking room. Yeah.
I tell you another good thing that came out of the show with it, speaking of, Peter DeLuise. This is kind of, he went from this to working on Stargate behind the scenes because of stuff he learned working on this, which, is great for that because he wrote and directed some of the best Stargate episodes. And fantastic stuff.
He's a legend in the Stargate fandom. If you know people in Stargate fandom, they talk about Peter DeLuise's sort of involvement and contribution to Stargate.
That's our next panel, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Right after this.
And we got all night, right?
Hang on, I'll get my husband. He's a huge Stargate fan. Like, it's fine. I'm fine.
We got all your merchandise behind you to Stargate.
Right. Talk
about Stargate fan. I love Stargate. I'm super Stargate.
So Lola,
I was going to say David DeLuise was the club manager in that episode.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty much the entire family was in that episode.
Like I said, D stands for Deluise.
So, Bobby, were there?
I ain't complaining.
So, out of season 2 and 3 were the marked drop off, but from season 1, right?
Well, I don't know.
I was going to say, what are good parts?
I get crap for this a lot, but I actually like season 3, most of season 3. I kind of felt they were slowly starting to get back to what season 1 might have gone to had they not changed producers. Because season 1 is full of there's a theme that goes through season 1 about all these people in high ranks or in high positions who fell off the grid, faked their deaths, became someone else. There's a lot of that. And I always felt like maybe they were setting these things up to pay off later, or something where these people would be involved with something. And of course, we didn't get that because, the show shifted tone so greatly. But I love, with most things, so the biggest thing that will keep me coming back is the characters.
Mhm.
And I really loved most of the characters on the show.
Yeah,
there were a
really
lot of great relationships. Bridger and Lucas, that was I bought it. It was a wonderful chemistry between the two actors and the characters.
That's what made that episode in season 3 so good when it came back, and now they have to be on opposing sides.
Yeah.
And they're both wrong.
Yeah. So stuff like that's good, or the relationships between Bridger had great relationships with multiple characters of a different kind.
Bridger and Crocker was another one I really loved. I loved sort of those two older sailors talking to each other kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was nice. That was really nice.
Yeah, because he was the only guy that could understand Bridger on a we're the same age basis. They had most of the same shared experiences.
Well, and also the way they set up that first season, Crocker was the only one who had served with Bridger before, so he knew Bridger and he trusted Bridger implicitly, whereas Admiral Noyce basically foists on Ford, who's incredibly competent, who's written as like this guy who takes a nuclear physics course over between season 1 and 2 while the ship's in dry dock getting a refit. He takes a nuclear physics course. Like he's cast as uber competent. He stands up to the previous captain and prevents her from starting World War III. And so, but Noyce foists on Ford, you have to protect the incompetence so Bridger will take on this ship. Like Ford should have been captain based on how they wrote it.
Yeah, because Bridger was more like the guy everybody knew who he was by his name. They knew his name, they knew his reputation, but nobody except Noyce and Crocker really knew him.
Yeah,
and so he to the rest of the crew, there's almost that oh my God, I can't believe it's him thing. Like when Hitchcock finds him sitting at her station, and when she's reading until she realizes who he is.
Because for people who didn't know, Bridger helped design the ship. Like it's his ship, he designed it. So that's why he's got this reputation amongst the crew of being this legend. Whereas to the scientists, he's a respected scientist because since he's left the military, he's been doing research with dolphins. So that's why I just wanted to mention that. So go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, that's what made him the perfect guy to be there, but with what they were trying to do with the military and the sciences and the merging of those two on that ship, he was the perfect guy because he understood both sides. Whereas I think if Ford had just been made captain, he wasn't there yet on the science side. But we do see him start to lean that way as things go along. And I thought that was good character building on his part.
So speaking of characters, we've made it almost 30 minutes, and we haven't discussed the talking dolphin.
Darwin!
Oh, Darwin!
I was so disappointed later in life to learn that most of the dolphin scenes were not a real dolphin.
It was animatronic. It was an animatronic puppet.
Yeah.
And sadness, it's going to break some hearts. When the show was over, he was sold off. I believe for parts, but it could have been. He might be in some special effects warehouse that was dragged out for some B-schlock movies or something.
Was he put in tuna? He was put in someone's tuna.
Yes.
You would have figured since all that stuff was at Universal Orlando, it would have somehow moved over to another, attraction. But
no, they sold off when the show was canceled. So the show was canceled after 13 episodes in the third season, in fact, I'll circle back to this, but after that cancellation, they sold off all the props. So the props were sold, and this is typical of Hollywood. They sell off, they don't keep them. There's no sentimentality. And my understanding is that a lot of the wetsuits were actually bought by local sports people who needed a wetsuit for skiing, because the wetsuits that they had for the show were really good quality. They were O'Neill wetsuits, like they were expensive, right? So they were buying, this was cheap wetsuits. People bought costumes. I know that the people who ran QuestyCon actually went to that auction and bought a bunch of stuff that they then resold again for a charity auction at QuestyCon. And a friend of mine got Ed Kerr's costume from one of the episodes, which I took home because she had to leave before the auction finished. So I took home for her and mailed it to her in California.
The Dolphin, go ahead. Did the Dolphin have special Dolphin episodes, or was he just kind of in the background doing funny stuff?
The second episode, actually.
Yeah, the second episode.
Season
was based for Darwin.
Yeah, he was going to die, and the whole thing's we got to save Darwin.
Yeah.
And actually, the Shatner episode is actually really beautiful because they get to show Darwin as like a therapeutic option for Shatner's son.
Now Darwin's appearances started to taper off.
Yeah.
They didn't use Darwin as much in season 2, and barely at all in season.
He doesn't speak at all in season 3, if my memory serves. And in part, that was a cost saving. Like you have to understand that the show in the first season was incredibly expensive to produce. And there was all sorts of things that were done to cut costs in addition to try and help raise the ratings.
That's why they moved to Florida. Yeah.
That's why one of the reasons why they moved to Florida, because it was going to be cheaper to shoot in Florida. Bobby, I think it was you that said in the Facebook group that some of the actors didn't want to move. That's why some of them left. I believe Kristen Westphal and great Stephanie Beacham. Losing her.
Yeah.
Rosalind Allen is a perfectly competent actress, but she is no Stephanie Beacham.
Right.
And
as I remember understanding it, hearing this, and I don't remember who told me, but it was that, she absolutely hated the series.
Yeah.
Stephanie Beacham just hated it. Even now, she won't talk about it in interviews.
She was on the Colbys. Look.
But now I do understand that Stephanie Beacham and I'm blanking on her name, Hitchcock, Stacey Hayduke, they were both invited back.
They
Stephanie Beacham did not want to, and after talking to producers, I'd read somewhere that Stacey Hayduke said, "I don't want to be in a bikini every episode," and that's what it sounds like it'll happen.
And look what they did to Hitchcock. Henderson, good old Henderson, Lonnie Henderson, poor woman.
Sidebar for all of your Stargate needs, the military sci-fi media track at DragonCon is responsible for all of your Stargate business. So I'm assuming they're going to do 83 Stargate panels, or at least 36.
Yeah.
I'm not promising 36 Stargate panels for them. I'm saying that's where you should go. But kindly tune in, find them on the Facebook at Military Sci-Fi Media. Our
request a Deluise panel.
I will be on a Deluise panel.
Yes.
I will throw my hat, even if it's an 8:30 in the morning panel. I will be on it.
8:30 a.m. Deluise panel. Look, Military Sci-Fi Media. We got your schedule handled.
Especially if the Deluises
I just
are
wanted
there.
to mention, there better be actual Deluise on that.
Yeah, there has to be Deluise.
Work on it.
I do want to mention that Darwin was voiced by the great Frank Welker. That's who we lose in the third season when they cut that voice, because like I said, because that's Lucas Wallenchuk's big invention is the vocoder, which allows Darwin's trips and chirps to be translated into English. Although I just have something I would like to ask everybody. Darwin's first line, or one of the first lines Darwin says in the show is, like, Bridger asks Darwin, if you are really Darwin, what color of swimsuit do I wear? And Darwin answers, no suit skin. Which makes me think, what in dolphin language is swimsuit? Because I'm not like I have an issue, like it's something that's troubled me for years, because it's like
that's what keeps you up at night.
Dolphin for everything. What's the dolphin word for swimsuit?
Yeah. Like, what's going on with that? I didn't know that was a word.
There are plenty
They
of times.
taught the dolphin to play football. I mean, come on.
So what Jessa, who was your favorite guest star on the show?
Oh my goodness.
Or top 3?
Oh wow. Oh, opens it up. No, I gotta go predictable. I go with Mark Hamill, because also we got Alien.
Mm-hmm.
So, but also he shows up in full Jedi robe, even though it's the wrong
Yes.
color. But that's all right. I was like,
Yes.
you know what? If you're gonna have Mark Hamill, there better be a robe.
Why not?
And they did
Why
it.
would you?
Mhm.
But it was, and I like that they bring him back. That he actually does get to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was at a point in time too. Like, Mark Hamill didn't do a lot of TV in those.
Right.
Yeah.
This,
Before
that
the Flash,
was a
Voice
big
of
deal.
Joker on the animated series at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, that was concurrent with the,
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, live action, he really did. So getting him on that show was really a big deal. So same with like Charlton Heston. These were not guys known for just doing, being guest star of the week on everything.
At any
Although
point
I really
did-
do, and Deanna probably is going to hate me for this, but I do like the Shatner episode. Even though the story rating on that is really odd, like, he's a warmongering crime lord, but yet he's got this heart of gold when it comes to his son who he can't communicate with. But just because they bring in the whole Darwin therapy aspect of it,
Yeah.
I can do without Shatner, sorry.
God awful mustache.
When I first watched it, I was like, is that Shatner? No. Yeah, that is. He's not talking in phrases, though. I can't tell.
And he gets in the pool, fully clothed, shoes and all. I mean,
That's commitment.
yeah.
That is commitment. Thank you.
Well, as we have established, Shatner ain't cheap. Getting Shatner naked is not cheap either.
That is true.
I don't want to know how you know that price, Bobby. I don't want to know.
Call it a hunch.
Call it a-
I feel that it might be a violation of a treaty or a UN statute somewhere to have Shatner naked in anything. So I think we can all be grateful that SeaQuest didn't have that kind of money in the first season, because
Hey, Lola, what's your favorite guest star?
Well, he wasn't famous back then, and I don't know if he's really famous now, but I love him. Tim Ormanson.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he was on
Slovene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's actually on this part of my hat right here.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Yeah, let me see if I can bring close. Yeah. Right
How
there.
neat is that?
Yeah, he was a first season guy. He was in several episodes.
And he just disappeared, right?
Yeah.
He was in
Yeah.
4 episodes.
Most of
He
the people from
didn't
season
want to go
one.
to Orlando and wear a bikini every week. So
Yeah.
But he had the killer sideburns.
yeah.
Came to a point down, and I was like, because back then when I saw it, I didn't know who he was. So when I rewatched it recently, I was like, that's Tim Ormanson.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, okay.
I hope that when he signs autographs, he just signs the Mark of Cain from Supernatural.
I-
Surely.
This was pre-Supernatural.
Ah.
Okay, now we have
He had an extensive career before that.
Yeah.
As I understand, that is correct. Yeah.
It was pre-psych too, way pre-psych.
Oh yeah, yeah. But no, he's super good. Our buddy Sherman pointed out that Dr. Zarkov from the Flash Gordon movie was on an episode,
Oh yeah, Paul. Yeah.
and I do not remember that at all.
That was like episode 3 or 4.
That's
Yeah,
the Library of Alexandria episode, right?
Mhm.
Like that's where they find the buried Library of Alexandria
Yeah,
because an earthquake, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That one had a few notable sci-fi guys, like T'Pol is in it. Eric Avari from Stargate and a lot of other shows. Yeah, Tim Russell's in one. Yeah. I forget the guy's name, but the guy that played he was the Centauri ambassador, Turhan Bey. He was from Babylon 5. I knew him there. He was in it. So they pulled a lot of sci-fi. You may not have known their names, but there's a guy.
Yeah, you knew them.
A lot of those.
Yeah.
Well, what Scheider? This is a tough. Outside of SeaQuest, this would be a tough question. But Scheider or Ironside?
Scheider.
And a million times over.
And I think
it's mean.
I think part of it is that Michael Ironside, the way they wrote him, came in and he was mean. He was mean to some of our favorite characters. Like he was mean to Lucas. He was mean to Piccolo.
He was mean to Dagwood.
Like he was mean to Dag. Like, come on, let's like picking a puppy.
Military guy though.
Yeah,
like I totally saw that.
He had to be badass. He had to be.
I mean, and he made Lucas like go through like a lot of.
Yeah. It became they got the science part went away. It was like if you want to stay on this ship, you've got to enroll and you've got to enlist.
Yeah.
And
I mean, when we get to season 3 and there's that larger overarching storyline where it really does become like the United Nations of the military underwater.
The storyline also with the time jump, the world changes and is at a higher, tensions. So when they refitted the SeaQuest, they didn't think anybody was going to survive from the previous second season crew. And so they made this vessel something different in the time of what the world was. So you're reintroducing people into a new world and a new ship.
Yeah, it was not as nice as the first one.
Yeah.
Like I missed the bridge from the first season. That was a great bridge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was smaller and it wasn't as actually it looked less futuristic.
Yeah. Everything very squared off.
Well, if you think about like in the first season, the helmsman's positions, those were almost it's very reminiscent of the White Stars from Babylon 5. It's sort of a theme of the time of sort of these like kind of scoopy kind of seats that you would lie in and
they're gamer chairs.
Yeah, well, or recumbent bikes. They also remind me of recumbent bikes. It's like they're riding on the recumbent bikes as they play ship. But yeah,
that's actually how they did the propulsion for the ship. Yeah,
yeah. Why Lonnie had such good legs because she was just pumping away there at the beginning.
So, but now and talking about guest stars too, we haven't mentioned the first and second season didn't really have recurring villains.
No,
it was mostly done in ones. Third season started having recurring villains, and I have to mention how good Michael York was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
As a villain, he was fantastic.
Yeah. No, he was creepy.
Yeah. So I'm curious.
And people these days don't know who Michael York is, which is not a crime.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's our job. That's how we've got to. We need to do an all Michael York panel now. Because, my God.
We need one.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm busy with the Deluise panel.
Deluise
first, then.
Yeah, I've often wondered though, because season 3, because things kept changing in those 13 episodes, 2 or 3 people get killed. They're bringing in new people. They're setting up new villains. Part of me wishes I could know where we were going, because it seemed like they were trying to course correct and get us somewhere.
See, this is where my knowledge from the conversations online, the producers promised us that the back 9 of season 3 was going to be amazing. They had so many great things set up, but I don't think they knew. I think this was like a Hail Mary. They were given money, produce something for 13 episodes to fill the schedule, And I don't believe that they actually had any hope of continuing another 9 episodes. I think they knew that this was their sort of last shot, and a lot of them were, like Rabkin and Goldberg go on to Diagnosis Murder, and Habsburg doesn't do another sci-fi show. So it's like they really weren't sci-fi people. It's not like oh gosh, what's his name, who did Battlestar Galactica? I can see him now with the hair.
Oh, Ron Moore?
Yeah, it's not like a Ron Moore or some of the Buffy writers who go on to do other things that are sci-fi or fantasy or horror. This was kind of like, come in, write, this is a job, and it was for money. And, so I don't personally believe the back 9, they had any idea what they were doing. The good thing I can say about 2032 is at least we stopped recycling B-movie monster plots, because the second season became very much like our in-joke in the fandom was Lobster Man will show up at some point, because like it's gonna be. It literally was like, okay, so they've pulled that from that movie, and like you kind of see what they were referencing, and it wasn't a good reference. It wasn't we're not talking like Naked Now, or like a take on like the Trouble with Tribbles episode from DS9 that references Trouble with Tribbles. That's an homage. That's brilliant, right?
No,
whereas
what we got is, we're gonna do Killer Plants.
Yeah, and
that Killer Plant episode is what actually got me to start eating asparagus. Every time I eat it, I'm like, this is revenge with butter.
But one of the things too that stood out for me as a negative, especially with season 2 and 3, they seem to spend more time on land in those seasons than they did in the water.
It's called SeaQuest.
Yeah, and
I think that had to do with having Universal Studios. I think they treated it like a back lot. So they moved to Florida and they were shooting at Universal Studios in Florida. And they shot, so like one of the Alien episodes in season 2 was shot on part of the Jaws ride. So on one of the hills of the Jaws ride, Roy Scheider in the restaurant was shot at the restaurant.
Yeah, the Quint sign is behind him. Yeah, Quint's store is behind him. Yeah.
Exactly.
What?
So there's also,
that's cool.
Yeah.
And that long drive into Universal in the Disney complex was the roads for a lot of things.
Yeah, and the
long entrance, and filmed a lot of stuff in SeaWorld.
And the episode where they all went to where the sort of junior officers went to the place that would give you could do like a virtual 3D, like it's not a VR experience. It was more of like a dreaming experience. Where Tim was the Southern Civil War general. I mean, like there's a whole bunch of weird things happening there. That was shot in a section of Universal Studios, one of the sort of promenades where all those fake building fronts. So I think one of the reasons why they weren't in underwater as much is they had moved the shooting to Florida, and they had to kind of justify that move by saying, hey, we're going to be here, right? Like, look, we've got all these sets we can use, instead of understanding that you're right. The show is about a submarine. There should be underwater. And it was also a way to cut the SF budget, because in the first season, we have all sorts of scenes of Katie with the whiskers, right? Katie with those underwater
hyper-reality
probe,
And I don't think the probe comes back to it.
No,
it's not imagery at all.
And so there's like all those shots underwater were all computer generated and cost a significant amount of money. Like we are talking about the 90s, the early to mid 90s here. It's not like it is now where, I have students that I've taught that could probably produce some of this stuff on their laptops if I gave them enough
Put them
time.
to work, Deanna.
Because
We need a reboot.
I think most of the shots
for you from the Military Sci-Fi Media Panel.
You keep trying to get someone from the Deluises. If you get Michael, I will come. Okay?
It's happening. So our buddies at Military SF Media, they're working on the Deluise family.
And whoever that Facebook user is, I did this the first time I participated in one of these panels on the chat. I didn't give SteamYard permission to access my Facebook name. So I was making all sorts of snarky comments at Gary, and Gary kind of figured out it was me pretty fast. So sign in, and then we'll know who you are, and we can give you proper credit and make sure people come to see you.
Yeah. But in the meantime, Lola, you have a SeaQuest PowerPoint that you'd like to show.
I spent hours doing this, and I know I'm doing the max headroom thing, so I'm hoping that when I share my screen, it's okay. But I took screenshots. I just did the first season because after the first season, I thought I was gonna turn into a skeleton. So I was like, one season, but and a lot of them, I make reference to other shows, and I know that the other shows are after SeaQuest, but I just couldn't resist it because I thought it was funny. So let me see if I can share my screen. Hold on, it's been a while since I've done this on StreamYard. It's easiest with 2 monitors. Well, I don't have 2 monitors.
StreamYard being bossy.
I know. I'm like, come on.
You would think one screen would be easier, less to choose from.
You would think. All right. I want Chrome. Oh, dear.
Oh, there it is.
You see it?
I see your...
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
And now we're stacked. Now it's like the Brady Bunch.
It is like the Brady Bunch. I think Allison is Alice, which is very...
Good planning.
Marsha.
Can you still see it?
I can see your...
I can see your
screen, just not your video.
Yeah, we don't see your slideshow yet.
Yeah, we got your Discord.
You totally know where you are on Discord now.
Yeah.
Dear.
So I can fill some error if you want. While one of the characters I miss when we switched over to season 2, I miss Krieg. And I know Piccolo kind of takes his spot, but the Treasure of Tonga Trench is my favorite season 1 episode. It is brilliant. So if you've never watched this episode, Krieg finds very shiny bioluminescent rocks and has convinced that he's found a new mineral that he's going to be able to sell for lots of money. And he's selling it all over the ship. And he even sells it, I think, to an admiral or some mucky muck. And it turns out it's poop. It's fish poop. Nice. And so
the giant squid's fish poop. Yeah.
It is honestly one of the it's such a lovely little character episode about Krieg and about the kind of, deal guy he was. He was the ship's stores person. So he get you anything. Now we're doing there we go.
It was so good to see him back in it was season 3, right?
Yeah.
Season 3, yeah.
I was going to say, how did you feel about that season 3 episode with him?
It wasn't a lot of the returns in season 3. I had the same problem with Bridger in season 3. They weren't the characters that I loved. They weren't the characters like Krieg. I get what they were doing with him, that he had fallen in with this band of refugees and he had finally become a better person. But the fact that they were I'm from Canada. They were on an iceberg. Icebergs flip. That is not a stable place to be.
my big thing was
Sci-Fi part of it.
Yeah, my big thing was, why was he still wearing the SeaQuest uniform from 11 years ago when he got kicked off, when he got sent off the ship?
And he applied for the job as a manager for the fast food chain.
Yeah.
I do.
I gotta agree with Ryan right here.
I'm telling you,
Dolphin.
Yep. It would have been amazing. But so the loss of Krieg to me was one of the things. I get Piccolo kind of takes his spot narratively,
and Brody, both of them. It takes 2 people to replace Krieg.
Takes 2, and Brody is I understand that. my friends, I actually ran at this time, children, back in the old days, when a show would be on and hunky male actors would be on the show, there would be, so the Patrick Stewart Patrick Stewart, what was it called? PCSB, Estrogen Brigade, the Patrick Stewart Estrogen Brigade from Star Trek The Next Generation. So these were all women who were in love with, or lust with, Patrick Stewart.
It could be love. You don't know.
And so every time a television show would come on, one of these groups would form. And while Ed Kerr didn't do it for me, I volunteered to run a mailing list for the Ed Kerr Estrogen Society, or EECS, as it's called. So I told you I was deep in this fandom. I'm not lying. I am deep in this fandom. And so I ran a listserv where we talked about Ed and talked about the character of Brody and what he was, what we liked and didn't like about Brody.
Yeah.
I will say he has a plot point that still to this day irritates me to no end. It was a plot point that they just threw in there for no reason.
Was it his mom?
No, it's the kid.
It's they finally has a kid.
Yes, when he has a kid.
We're not going to do anything with it. Anderson doesn't get to have she already is racked with guilt. But then we throw in, now there's this mystery kid that he didn't tell anybody about that we're not going to do anything with. So why did we bring it up?
Well, and also the point about Brody himself, he lost his mom, and we found out his mom had an incurable disease, and his grandparents panicked and shoved her in a cryo chamber. And in fact, there's that episode where she comes back briefly and he hits on her. It's a little creepy. But then Brody was supposed to be the big woo. And then but given Brody's background, he would never have, if he'd had a kid, he might not have stayed with him because he was supposed to be a Lothario who was sleeping around.
Yeah,
he might not have stayed with him.
Yeah, he was also supposed to be married to his.
Yeah, he was married to his job.
Lothario, who was
Darwin was
all the ladies and all the men.
Allison, what about your Jessa and Allison? What about tell me about, or I guess anybody could, SeaQuest fanfic. How big was that?
That was before my fanfic days.
Not only used.
Oh my God!
She has.
Of course, Deanna has physical copy.
I'll just keep going. Talk.
Yeah. Not only was it the days of Usenet, but also I was in Yahoo.
Oh,
Yahoo!
Yes.
Back, when I was at the library, because dial-up, there was no way I was getting the internet at my house.
Right.
So I would go to the library, and I would be sitting there and going through my little Yahoo groups that I had. Some of them were role-playing games, and some of them were fan fiction stuff. So for me, when I started learning actually how to do role-playing games, I thought it was just like, round robin fan fiction was how I thought.
Oh, round robin, yeah.
Because that's how we wrote some of these fan fictions. It's like somebody would write a scene or a story, and then somebody else would pick up and write the next episode, and we would keep going.
That is very cool.
I think I have two. One of them was like I came up with this crazy Mirrorverse episode that was able to actually bring Brody back in season 3 after
I just fit right in.
I cried. I'm sorry. I
did too. I was sad when Ed Kerr wanted out. Like Ed Kerr wanted out. That's why he wanted to be written off. But I also have written fanfic where Brody comes back.
Yeah.
He comes back as a chippy because that's actually built into season 3. We have Elise Neal, who goes on to the Hughleys. So she's a chippy. She's a soldier who's had a chip implanted to control her emotions.
Yeah, she dies in the last episode as well.
She does.
Does anybody have the fanfic where the cast of SeaQuest DSV meets Manimal?
No.
If anybody would, Joe, it would be you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
You don't
sorry.
have it already?
And
I'm
Jessa,
sorry, guys.
this would
You
be
don't
smut.
have it because I just started writing it today.
Yeah. But now, I tell you,
That's perfect.
yeah,
Mail them to me, let me read them, and then I'll send them back.
yeah,
Boom.
and in talking too about the SeaQuest fandom, there was also that secondary Jonathan Brandis fandom.
Well,
We
and
haven't
He
talked about
was
him.
because he was the it guy for several years. People that,
that
you know,
I think that actually hurt the show more than it helped it, because one of the
Mhm.
reasons why they went with younger cast in the second season was they were hoping to tap into that Jonathan Brandis fandom and say, hey, not only is there Jonathan Brandis, but look at all these other very young people that we have. There were like the changes in cast were very complex, right? Like it wasn't just one thing. It was a cost-cutting measure. It was an attempt to get a younger audience. It was also to sex it up a bit.
And it also became a little bit whiter.
Yeah. So you're looking at like it was a bit more of a complex issue, but I think Jonathan Brandis's fandom, his popularity, actually hurt the show because he increasingly became more and more of a focus of the episodes.
Did he pass away during the show or
No,
after?
is after.
Like many child actors, Jonathan Brandis struggled after his childhood was over. And he kind of peters out after SeaQuest. Like there's not much after that. And he, unfortunately struggled with a lot of issues and and died quite young, tragically. So no, he doesn't.
Yeah, because I know when he was doing SeaQuest, he was trying to add to not just be the actor, because I know he wrote a couple of episodes.
Oh, cool.
Of the show.
And he was
so
hoping
Yeah, but I can't imagine either at that age. Not only is he on a TV show, but all of this, he can't go anywhere without hundreds of girls screaming his name. He's on,
Let me say, it's tough. I understand.
Yeah, but what's worse is when that stops. It's not like that doesn't fall off gradually. When that kind of thing stops, it's a hard stop.
Yeah.
I imagine for a lot of people that's difficult, that you go from this to nobody caring, almost. And so, it's sad.
Did the show have an ending, or was it just canceled and it stopped?
It just stopped.
In season 3, there was no big wrap-up finale episode.
It kind of actually ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. They just introduced a new villain and a new character, and you think, okay, we're going to go.
Just killed off all those people,
and that was it.
Yeah.
They didn't get the back 9. That's what they call it. They got the first.
Yeah.
Well, that's lame. I mean, it could have ended at least with a little text on the screen like Quantum Leap saying everything is terrible after the show is over.
Well,
or they just exploded the ship again.
Because that was the end of season 2, right? It was boom and
season 1 of the ship. Season
1.
Or they never had to come back from
the dead.
They could have just.
They could have just stayed in space with Mark Hamill.
God knows where.
Yeah. And apparently they found out they were being canceled while they were filming that episode. There is a video you can find on YouTube where Michael Ironside is telling the crew, he's telling the cast, and explaining, that this is it. We've just been, and it's that bit where like O'Neill is in the pool where he's just drug in the pilot. That's the film they were filming, scene they were filming when they were told we're done. So
when she died on the way back to his home planet. Joe, you gotta look at the chat. That's good. Sherman's
Darwin's
good.
like, I'm out. Call my agent. This is ridiculous.
And the tragedy of this show is that there are points in this show when you think that's it, that's the show, that you could just totally do that. And with I think a more focused writing crew, because they had good characters. They had great characters. Ford is fantastic. Katie is amazing. Westphalen, amazing. Even the ones they brought in the second season. Brody is an interesting character. He's not and his rivalry with Ford made more sense. Like, it worked.
Mhm.
The two of them they had good chemistry. They were able to fight, like, spar off each other. They were opposites. Brody's the hothead, the big flashy guy. Ford is more reserved, more quiet.
But I appreciate that they like calmed that down in the end.
Yeah.
Like, eventually they come to terms.
No,
they can be friends.
But they were clearly friends, but at the same time, you know, they sparred off each other.
Egg each other on.
And we haven't even talked about Ortiz and O'Neill's relationship to each other. Like, I mean, the two characters that most people really, really love are Ortiz and O'Neill.
And I kind of hate it too that, like, Ortiz is just gone. He doesn't come back for season 3, but he's never mentioned again.
My understanding is he's supposed to be dead, actually. Yeah. Like, he dies.
But like, just no one ever mentions him. They just say,
I know. Sorry.
That didn't happen.
He's in another dimension.
Marco Sanchez had another show. He got picked up for another show. It was a legal drama that lasted a season. But he got picked up for another show. So he said, I'm leaving. Like, and also they didn't think they were coming back. So they all went out and auditioned for things, and he got a show, and so off he went.
Did they all leave because they all had prune hands after 2.5 years?
Yes.
So final thoughts on the show, Mr. Bobby.
It's a fun show. If you've never seen it and you enjoy a good, family sci-fi drama, I think you'll enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I did recently rewatch them and I enjoyed it. So yeah, it's a good show. I'm glad I caught it first run, and yeah.
Cool. Miss Deanna?
What can I say about SeaQuest? I could talk for 3 or 4 hours about this show.
You almost have.
I almost have. And I'm not even done.
No.
I do love this show. It will always be very fond in my heart. I am also very aware of its flaws. But it had, like I said, the characters are a strength. I wish the writing had been up to the characters. And I wish that the network had the faith in this show to leave it alone. Because one of the things about early 90s sci-fi is it needed a year to figure itself out. So if you watch the first season of Next Gen, it is boring as all get out. I mean, it is bleh. And it's not until second season that they start to find their feet. And then third season, that's the Next Gen that we all think is amazing, is that sort of third, fourth, fifth season. And SeaQuest was never given that chance in any of its iterations to do that, because they kept retooling it, reformatting it in a desperate attempt to get ratings. So I'm very fond of this show. I think it's worth the time. Go in knowing that it has flaws, but stay for the characters, because there are some beautiful scenes in this that are funny and sweet and heartwarming. And Ted Raimi is lovely as O'Neill. He's one of the only guys who lasts 3 seasons. So he and Ford are the two that last the 3 seasons, and Ted Raimi is fantastic in this. So
Lola, final thoughts.
I loved the first season. I loved the second season. I usually hate cast shakeups, but I got used to the actors and I started liking the actors. I did not care for the third season. It was just all doom and gloom and fighting, and I just wish they hadn't done it.
Allison, final thoughts?
Second season is actually my favorite because while I love the science and the hard science in season 1, for me, season 2 really is where we got a lot more in characters, and you started to see a lot more relationships beyond Lucas and Bridger, and the relationships with Bridger and Westphalen. So for me, season 2 is really where a lot of my heart of the characters come from, because not only that, but they struggle a lot. And you see how they work together to get through these struggles. They're not just relying on their military training, but they actually have to rely on their human beingness as well.
Jessa, final thoughts.
It's worth it to watch the whole series. You know, there are going to be some episodes that you don't care for, and that's fine. But overall, it does work to the whole series. Think about those relationship building moments. But yeah, just give it a go. Sit through it all. Sit through it all. You're not going to like it all, but at the end, you'll enjoy it. And if you ever get to the toll, visit the oceanographic too.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. Oh, I also would like to just real quick mention that the pilot movie was directed by Irving Kershner, who also directed several other big movies like Empire Strikes Back. And so beautiful directing on that pilot movie.
Yeah, on the Blu-ray. I think it's on the DVD. Also, you can do it as a two-part episodic, or you can do it as a feature length.
So if you are out on the interwebs and want to be found, Jessica, where can people find you?
Search for Good to Be a Geek. We're a little, it hasn't been updated in a while, but it'll get you where you need to go.
And Allison.
I'm mainly on Twitter these days. It's at Richards. And I'm also write for 3ifbyspace.net. So feel free to pop in there and check out everything that we post up in that side of the internet.
Miss Lola.
I'm at Lola Lariscy on Twitter, and on Facebook I've got two. I'm Lola Strickland and Lola Lariscy. I also have a podcast called The Lariscy Conversations and a website, lolalarissy.com.
Deanna.
I do have a Twitter, but it's mostly my teaching stuff. So if you want to talk about math education, I'm your girl. I pretty much run the RevSF Facebook page. By the way, we did a poll this week of Sci-Fighters this week where we pitted Wesley Crusher up against Lucas, and Wesley did in fact crush Lucas 70% to 30. I'm the person doing most of the posting on the Revolution SF Facebook page.
I will let you and Gary fight about that. Bobby, where are you?
I'm all over social media. I'm author Bobby Nash on Facebook. I'm at Bobby Nash on Twitter. I'm Bobby Nash Writes on Instagram. My website is bobbynash.com. You can find all the links there. So.
Guys, thank you very, very much. I am going to bring on Gary Mitchell to run Lola's PowerPoint. You guys want to do that?
Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
That's,
Good to see it now.
Lola, are we allowed to yell out comments, or do you want us to behave?
Sure. Whatever.
MST3King this.
Oh,
Gary! Hi! Look, I'm supporting Deanna.
Sorry.
I want you to all know that I was watching this with rapt attention with my cybernetic shark.
Nice.
In many ways, season 2 would have been awesome for Asylum Pictures. They would, if you think about it, season 2 is essentially the Asylum channel on your TV.
Didn't season 2, wasn't it like Jaws 5D?
There were so many things in the season 2. Killer plants.
Shark's name is Friend G because
Nice.
I come prepared.
Heck yeah.
All right, so Lola, you'll have to tell me when to do next screen.
Oh, they're just all static pictures.
That's okay, but you tell me when to go to the next one.
When to advance? That's what he's saying. When to move on to the next slide.
Okay.
So you should see it now.
Hey.
That's from the first season. That was, what was his name? The guy he was talking to, his friend, and his friend brought his whole family, left his whole family talking to Bridger. And it was just so awkward looking. And I just thought, that's the most awkward Zoom meeting ever.
They were precognition. They knew.
It was.
And doesn't she look like Kristen Bell? That was
That's Roy Scheider's actual wife. That's his actual wife.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That makes it even more special. So he's Kristen Bell's dad. And I just said, fake news. The 2010. And I looked it up.
They filmed in Florida, and
Miami,
nice.
That makes sense. Okay. Now, who is this guy? I know him.
Eric Avari. Yeah.
He is no longer with us, unfortunately, but he was a lovely, lovely man.
He was fantastic in The Mummy.
And he's also known through you've seen him in the original Stargate movie and in the TV series because he played Shuri's or whatever they called her in the TV series. He played her dad.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. I think it started.
Again, there's another call out for the science fiction track at Dragon Con.
Yeah.
And this is, I've never seen him before in my life.
Yeah, he was excellent. He was excellent in Deadwood.
Yeah. He was also in a show called Jericho. Do y'all remember Jericho?
Mm-hmm.
It was this season. He was in that. I like that too. Now this made me laugh. This was the ghost episode where they were on a ship with the ghost. And the ghost ship. The ghost ship. And the last scene is, spoiler, he had done a very bad thing and he didn't think it was going to get forgiven. And she is ascending to heaven with her fiance, and they turn one look, and he has that eating grin look, and they hold
the outstretched hand. Yeah.
He has the outstretched hand, and he gets this grin, and I was like, "Ooh, invitation to a cosmic threesome."
Now, the captain there is John St. Ryan, who, if you watched Roar, he played Fergus in Roar and was the techno mage on Crusade. So that's why you recognize that guy on the left-hand side there.
Yeah, and I remember Roar. It had Keith Ledger.
Yep. Watched every episode of that show.
Nice.
And I just thought this was funny. This is the same ghost ship episode, and he was trapped, fire all around him, and I just suddenly thought of the Bonnie Tyler song.
The boy was a walking disaster. Every bad thing happened.
Nice. Good.
Now, a funny bit of trivia: if you watch the episode in season 2 where Lonnie gets the alien ripoff, where Lonnie gets dragged down the tubes, she gets dragged away by the alien. If you listen to Tim and Lonnie yell at each other, Lonnie's voice is deeper than Tim's. So Lonnie is going, Tim, and Tim's going, Lonnie! Tim! Lonnie! That's one thing. A friend of mine and I used to run that on a fairly regular basis.
A fantastic guest, too. We've had him at Dragon Con before. He was a fantastic.
I can imagine he was just lovely.
Yeah.
He seems like he'd be a nice guy in real life.
I got to see Ted at a panel, and he was a delight.
I would think so, yeah. And he's just so cute, and I was always on his side in Xena. I always felt bad when they mistreated him.
Oh, and he gets the final episode of the series, and I'm like, why? Why can he not just find a good girl that just will love him back?
And I saw this, and I thought of Rocky Horror Picture Show at the end. Riff Raff and Magenta, they have the sci-fi outfit on, and they're like, Frankenfurter, it's all over. And so that's why I captioned it that. And of course, this is Seth Green, the hacker episode. And I wonder if I get that callback for Buffy.
Yeah, this was the episode that also had Tim Russ. Yeah.
And he was coming up too.
Yeah.
I wonder if I did him next.
Was this before?
Huh?
Nice.
I was going to say, is this Tim Russ's? Was this before Cop Rock for Tim Russ or after Cop Rock for Tim Russ?
I don't remember.
We don't talk about Cop Rock.
I just want to correct something. Facebook user, and I wish I knew your name because you haven't logged in, but he has corrected me. He or she has corrected me. Eric Avari is apparently not dead, so the rumors of his death have been greatly spread by me, and I am wrong.
Yeah, started by you, Deanna.
Yeah, that's me. I did it.
He's not alive.
I did encourage my SeaQuest friends to show up and tell me when I was wrong.
Yeah. Maybe Eric Avari watching the episode, watching our podcast here.
Yeah, exactly.
Eric, if that's you, I apologize.
People can tell you you're wrong. When has that started?
I hope he doesn't like die tomorrow because then he might.
Oh, good Lord! Why are we doing this?
All right, so we have, So we have Stephen
Stephen Williams.
The moment I saw him, I was like, "It's X," and I struggled with the caption that I wanted to do. I was just going to put an X, but I was like, I don't know, people might not know that, and I don't want people to think.
No, Lola, we know.
You know,
what track are you on, Lola?
Well, I just want to sing the 21 Jump Street theme song. And then we have Tim Russ, and the second he came on screen, I thought they had him dressed like he was in the 60s. He was like a hep cat, like, hey, dude, I'm hep and I'm cool with the kids. And so I thought, this is illogical. Why am I dressed like it's the 70s in a 90s show?
Because it's really 2018, and it came back.
I guess it came back. Yeah, dressing like a cool cat. Yo, I'm out on the street. Yeah, I'm cool.
Although we did not talk about diversity in this show, which also the 90s was really good about.
It actually was pretty good.
That's true, Jessa.
It was really good with it. And season 2.
Yeah.
If they had really wanted to keep it as diverse as they wanted to, as much as I love Tim, as I love the character of O'Neill, originally that character was supposed to be deaf. The communication officer who spoke multiple languages was actually supposed to be deaf with hearing aids.
Interesting.
And actually was also supposed to be a Canadian character if you've read the novelization. Was actually Canadian in the book. But they changed that. I mean, the Canadian thing I can take or leave, believe it or not. But it would have been interesting to have a communication officer who was deaf. And who spoke multiple languages. That would have been a really cool thing, and I don't know why they dropped that.
Maybe they thought it would just take more time to explain it.
Yeah.
Okay, how we're closing in on the record for longest quarantine panel. So how many of these do we have left?
I think this is the last one.
Joe, I can talk for days. Like, come on.
This is the final shot.
Starting on Patreon is Deanna's talks about SeaQuest.
Yeah.
You damn dirty submariners.
I love it. Well, guys, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessa, Allison, Lola, Deanna, Bobby, and of course, my co-director, Gary Mitchell.
You know, 2 more people and we could play like sci-fi Hollywood squares.
We're definitely good at that now.
I call center square.
I want to be Paul Lynde.
I'd like to take you out of it. We are 100% doing that, Bobby.
I want to take Deanna for the block.
Guys, thank you very much. Please join all of us on our various social medias. If you're watching us live on Facebook right now, you don't have to find us on Facebook. You're already there. But we also will be posting this video a little bit later on the YouTubes, so you can watch it forever. And go to Peacock and watch SeaQuest, and stay tuned to us. We're going to be doing another one of these very soon, and a full weekend of it, virtual Dragon Con.
Gary, stop pushing me.
Yes, thank you guys. I didn't hear a word you said, Deanna.
Said Joe, Gary's pushing me. Gary's touching me.
Right, Gary. It's all broken down.
Don't make him pull this car over.
Join us.
I can't. I don't know which side I am. There we go.
Nice. So join us next week when Gary Mitchell will say,
I'm still not wearing pants.
God damn it, Gary.
They're actually at my house.
Hold on.